Jackson gave me the news of a planet far away. And Colonel O'Neill will assemble a team that will try to save the day. Dr. Sam has a master plan and a science attitude. And the Jaffa Teal, he's part of the deal with his trusty Goa'uld. It's just a regular day at Stargate Command, and it might be hard to understand.
Chevron 1 encoded. Chevron 2 encoded. Chevron 3 encoded. Chevron 4 encoded. Oh god, this is gonna happen. Chevron 5 encoded. Chevron 6 encoded. Chevron 7 what? We have a stable world!
So, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Three Fries Short. We are unearthing the Stargate with a very special guest star. You know him as Jonas Quinn from Stargate SG-1. Please welcome Corin Nemec. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you.
So exciting
to see you all.
So exciting. I'm just gonna say hi. I'm Christina. I am one of the members here. So I've been doing my rewatch, and I just finished my season 6 and 7. So you're fresh on my mind on all this stuff. So I'm like, oh yes, we got Corin coming in. I'm super excited. So
excellent.
We appreciate it.
Glad to hear that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah. And then we've got some guests here.
Okay,
yeah.
so Sarah is one of the other fries, and I'm the third fry. So it's three of us that are usually running this podcast.
I'm the fourth fry today.
Yes,
There you go.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now we're 4 fries short.
There we go. But we had to it's our last episode of the year. So along with you, we wanted to bring somebody else here to be able to interview you. And that's our friend Clark here, also known as Colonel Dave Dixon. To give you a little backstory, all of us met on TikTok. And so we all make Stargate related content on TikTok. And I consider Clark here the commanding officer of Stargate TikTok. So
kind.
There we go. Look at that background.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
What a show off. I love it.
I try.
He brought all of us together. He's the reason that we even started our podcast. So we felt it only fitting to have him here with you and for the last episode of the year. So yeah.
Very cool. I love it. Thank you.
I'm so honored to be here. Thank you very much, ladies, for inviting me. This is a dream come true.
Of course.
Love it. All right.
Should we dig in?
Yes.
Yeah. So obviously, we all know you from Stargate, but this is kind of how, my experience with your work, because I watched Stargate and then I went back and because my dad watched the Stand miniseries from 94. And I'm like, oh my God, that's Corin Nemec from Stargate. He's Harold Lauder. And then again, you were in the Toby Keith, Willie Nelson music video, Beer for My Horses.
Beer for My Horses, yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. So those are the three: Jonas Quinn, Beer for My Horses, and Harold Lauder. Those are the three things that I'm like, oh my gosh. But yeah,
getting to work with Willie Nelson and Toby Keith, obviously that was quite epic. Both of them are pretty, they're icons in their own ways. Willie being obviously the older of the more mature of the two. But what was so cool about that was just the fact that it was kind of like a little mini movie. It wasn't like your average music video where everybody's just standing around singing in different locations, but actually a nice little kind of storyline in there. And unfortunately, I did have to wear a mini skirt and high heels in that, but whatever.
You rocked it. It looked great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh God. How did that come to be? How was that? What's the story on that?
The guy who was casting it had done some work with on the show Parker Lewis Can't Lose. He had done some stuff with the PR department at Fox Studios, and so when the audition came up for him, when the part came up for him, he just immediately thought that I would be a good fit for that. I was very excited about it. It was pretty rad.
Yeah.
And it's always nice to be the comic relief every now and then too.
Yeah, you were that. You kind of were that punching bag of like,
So
you got
Corin,
Willie and Toby.
I was.
Yeah.
So Corin, I'm going to kind of date us because you're only a couple of years younger than me. So thank you for representing Gen X in Parker Lewis Can't Lose. That was an awesome show. I loved it so much. And there was actually some good names that came out of that cast as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah, well, the cast was fantastic. I really enjoyed working with everybody, especially Chris Judge, of course. Richard Dean Anderson was fantastic. He would kind of come and go. He would kind of sneak in, do all the stuff, and disappear. He had a great shooting schedule, I can tell you that. But the overall the cast itself, because you never know when you're working on ensemble shows that have been around for a long time, what the dynamics are going to be when you get on set. And to be honest, I've been on other shows that have been on air for a long time like that with a lot of success. And some of the actors on the show are a little bit uppity, and it kind of makes for a bit of a tense work environment. But the two best experiences I've had on long-standing shows were on Stargate and on Supernatural. The Supernatural cast was fantastic as well. Really, really great time on that show.
So
Nice.
another big show that had some big names was Solar Crisis.
Oh yeah, that was a very underwatched, underrated sci-fi movie in 1990. It was Charlton Heston, Jack Palance, Peter Boyle, Tim Matheson. Fantastic cast, really cool. Richard Sarafian directed it, who was known. He was known for directing the film Vanishing Point, which was this high adrenaline, basically hour and 20-minute car chase that was a really interesting movie. I highly recommend it. It's a really interesting film. And he did just a great job on it. It was a very, very big scale movie. It was back then, and we shot it, I think, in 88 or 89, but it was $48-50 million back then. So you're talking probably about $100 million movie today.
That's insane.
Or more,
That's insane to think about.
Yeah, I know. It is crazy how much money they spend on for us to be entertained. It's right. Pretty, because I mean, look at how entertained people are on a 7-second TikTok video that costs no money to make, or silly cat videos or something. It's like you have to spend no money on those.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, how do you balance that thought process? Because obviously being sensitive to like the amount of money that goes into just being entertained, like it's just interesting to think about, like, right? Like that, if you really think about it, like,
the scale of the productions. I mean, Stargate, for instance, I think we were close to $2 million an episode.
Wow.
And it really showed in the production design. They really spent, probably the largest amount of that budget was going into set building, I'm sure. Had to, and just incredible sets. We did the one of the episodes where we were in Antarctica. They had a whole entire, on a sound stage, had a whole piece of Antarctica built, the exterior to the laboratory that we were working in, and which led to a practical set on the inside. So it was like, wasn't just a facade. And they also brought in, I think it was like 15 or so of these giant industrial air conditioners, and they brought the temperature down inside the studio to 38 degrees or so you could really see our breath and everything. And so they could have built the set, lit it, and had us on there, but if you don't see our breath, you don't really believe that you're in a very cold environment. I think we've all seen that in movies before. They're all bundled up and everything, and you can tell it's probably like 78 degrees out.
Or they're sweating. They're like sweating while they're supposed to be cold, and you're like, no.
Yeah, exactly.
Or they try to add it like post like CGI, and you can kind of tell that it doesn't look right, and it's like
you can't fix everything in post.
No, you can't. No. I say the worst as an actor is having to do the opposite. Is to play warm when it's cold out. That really sucks. That really sucks. Yeah, we had to do that on Solar Crisis. Actually, we were shooting in the high desert. So it was supposed to be boiling hot, and we were shooting closer to the end of the year. and it was actually really quite chilly out, and especially at nighttime, it would drop down to 32 degrees or so.
Yeah.
And we're sitting there having to pretend we're really hot, and like you can see our breath and everything. I was like, you'll see if you watch Solar Crisis, you'll see the scene I'm talking about.
I'll have to look for it.
Yeah,
but that's a fantastic film, well worth watching, I think. Yeah.
Oh, so funny.
Yeah, you could really tell the special effects and the cinematography from season 1 up through like season 6. Like season 1, you have like a puppet coming out of Tilt's gut for the Goa'uld.
Right.
And then, even in season 2, the CGI got way advanced. So, you can tell season 1 was just kind of a test. They're not going to spend a lot of money. But then, all the bells and whistles came out as the years went on.
Nice. So, among our questions, we also have some questions from some of our listeners and TikTok followers. Sure. And so I'm going to hit you with some of those as we go along here. The first one, it's interesting to try to pronounce usernames that I've never said out loud before. But this one should be easy. From Radio Tot, the question is, did you know what you were getting into when you joined Stargate SG-1? Had you watched it? And also, how did you find out you got in the role?
I hadn't watched it, actually. It was on Showtime, and I didn't have that particular cable channel in my my lineup. Yeah. And so it's the feature film, though, Stargate the movie was a real favorite of mine. I was actually, when it came out in theaters, in the lead up to it coming out in theaters, I was well convinced it was going to be a really big hit, and it didn't hit as hard in the U.S. as they were expecting. So for them to have launched it as a TV series that many years later, well, I was actually pretty surprised that they had done that, because of the success of the film.
Right
now, it's one of my all-time favorite sci-fi movies. I can literally watch it anytime.
Nice.
And
agreed.
So when the series came out, I mean, all I remember was seeing was posters and billboards and advertisements for the series. So I knew what a big deal the series was. I was actually at MGM, at the corporate offices for MGM, auditioning for a totally different show, when the casting directors happened to pass by me in a quad kind of area outside the building where I was rehearsing, going over my dialogue and stuff. And they stopped me, and we just started chatting. And they had mentioned that very morning that the role for Jonas Quinn had come on their radar. And they were really familiar with my work in previous years. I had auditioned. They had cast me in other stuff in the years past, and I'd auditioned for them for many years. So they approached the producers and stuff up in Canada about me, and they were familiar with my work to the degree that they felt confident if I just sent them up kind of my demo reel and stuff like that they would just kind of go off of that. I at least had enough of a track record as an actor, that they were like, oh, he could come in, he could step in. That would be an interesting choice. So they watched some of my demo reel stuff from previous jobs that I had done, and they cast me. So it was a great process for me, because auditioning can be, it's hard to tell what anybody wants. The auditioning process now really sucks, because it's all online, and it's not even live. So it's not even like this, where you're on a Zoom call with somebody and you're actually live interacting. So you can't get any direction from anyone. You got to really just go off of like kind of what you assume that, that feels right to me. And I just have to go off of that kind of instinct, and not really so much when you're in a live situation auditioning. If just the casting director is in there, she's been very well briefed, or he has been very, very well briefed on what it is that they're looking for. So you can get a little bit of an interaction with them, make some adjustments to the character. And I've gotten many jobs that way, where I've gone in and not right off the cuff have I made the exact right character choice that they're looking for, but with a couple of minor adjustments, been able to bring the character to life in such a way that they were like, oh yeah, he's definitely the one for the job. And that really shows an actor's kind of the dimensions of an actor really come into play in that respect, when you can adjust and alter and change a character on the spot, to fit what a director is looking for.
Oh yeah, because I'm sure you have to be like, you're in your zone because you have to commit to it, but then you have to be super open to be like, oh, just kidding, let me back up, recommit. It's so interesting to think about. That's why I am not in that industry, because I could never do that. I would be like, you don't like my interpretation? Okay, I'm done. I quit. That's so cool.
What was the other thing you were auditioning for initially?
Oh, I don't even remember, to be honest. It was like a small independent film. They just rented offices there and stuff. A lot of the, you'll end up finding that it's some of the studio buildings, not the corporate buildings and stuff like that. You'll have other smaller production companies and stuff like that leasing office space from them, and which is smart because then they can kind of interact with some of the bigger players and stuff. But
it's so
rent ain't cheap, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's kind of like, because Sue Ann Braun had a similar story of like, it was kind of almost accidental of how it all came together. And like, same with you, it's like you weren't even auditioning for that, and you just happened to be in the right place at the right time, and it's so cool how it came together.
It was it was serendipitous, I have to say.
So I have a question about it, not to like tiptoe on it, but did you know what you were walking into? And this is how you get asked a lot.
Oh, that was part of the question, yeah.
But with Daniel, that whole thing leaving, like, did you know what you were walking into with that?
No, I had no idea about that side of it. I mean, obviously, I realized that the show had been quite a large success. I also understood that, that the character that Michael Shanks had decided that he wanted to. I've been at least briefed that he had decided that he wanted to leave the show and move on and do other things at that time. So it wasn't like they had left on bad terms or anybody got fired or anything, out of the ordinary was taking place. So I didn't think that coming on to the show there would be as much of an adjustment for the audience as it was, because there was no adjustment for me. I was just really, really excited to be a part of such a great franchise. And once I got the show, I went back and watched all of the 5 seasons that I wasn't a part of. And when I got to catch up on those 5 seasons, I realized like what an incredibly dynamic, entertaining, action-packed, well-written, comedic and also really rich with emotion. What a show it was! It wasn't just your average sci-fi series. It really was something special. And so I knew how fortunate and blessed I was to be on that show. Working with all the actors was great. I think that I had won over the majority of the fans by about halfway through the season, but at that point the damage had already been done. The fan mail that had been coming into Sci-Fi Channel, people were very upset that the original cast wasn't there. It wasn't that I wasn't doing a good job as the character. It's just that people wanted the original 4 cast members. So unbeknownst to me, that there was a little bit of finagling going on behind the scenes while I was on the show to bring back Daniel Jackson due to all of that fan blowback. So
this particular
so fans, unfortunately it was your fault.
Well, not ours. And we'll say there is some Jonas love out there. So in our TikTok world of it, Clark will talk about it, but there's some Jonas fans out there.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, no doubt about it. There was a group of fans over in the UK when the show first aired over there that called the Order of Jonas's Banana, named the OJBs, as they referred to themselves, and they all wore these brown cloaks with OJB on the back.
Oh my God,
odd. They were very cool. They were very funny. It was all tongue in cheek, but it was because of that scene in space with Teal'c where Jonas is, where I'm eating the banana in space. And, it became quite a thing.
I'm dead.
I love the scene with the Russian military guy, and you look at Amanda or Sam, and you're like, you might not be able to tell, but this man is very upset right now. It's just so funny.
So kind of like on the line of funny scenes. So in Redemption, you have to square off against Chris Judge in a sparring match.
Yeah, he was really punching me. He thought he was having a laugh. He wanted to see how far he could go with it.
Well, see, that's what I was wondering. Did you do your own stunts on that, or was someone taking the hits and you doing?
No. Of course, it was me.
That's awesome.
It was all me getting beaten up by Chris Judge. No better time. No better person to get beaten up by than a guy with such a great sense of humor and such a great attitude.
I can only imagine.
That's actually, he told me the story. That's how I won him over, actually. Was that scene. That was a scene that I won him over on because he really gave me a couple of jabs, like just to see how I would react and what and I had such a good attitude about it. And I jumped right back up and, and he was like, okay, this guy's cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
They just need to like pop back up and go, not a problem.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. 100%.
That kind of rolls into this question. I have a question from Tegan, who says, I would love to know how Corin got on with the cast after replacing an actor who had been on the series for many seasons. So I know you said fans weren't so happy, but like, how were you received by the rest of the cast? Obviously, you said Chris Judge.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah. Everybody was fantastic. Very welcoming. The adjustment was very quick. I became, really, really comfortable around everybody in a very short amount of time. I think that, and also the episodes that Michael Shanks came and did during season 6, he and I got along really great as well, which I think probably people would find surprising. But again, there was no bad blood when he left the show.
Right.
So why should there be any bad blood when he comes on the show or comes back or did get guest spots on the season 6 that he wasn't a regular in? And also, so everything to me was really quite comfortable, and really just such a blessing for him that he had such an ardent and dedicated fan base that he was brought back on the show, because a lot of times when an actor makes a hard choice like that to leave a show, many times it's very tough to get back on it. So that said, it was, what a blessing for him to be able to come back onto the franchise, such a successful one, and be able to continue it out until the very end. Really, really great.
Sure. So I'm going to play our first video here. So I have a couple of video questions and comments for you from people from TikTok as well.
Okay.
And I have to wrangle all of the technology now to make it happen. So this is from a TikToker named Lord Ulrich.
Love him.
He's pretty great. So let's see if this works here.
Greetings, Judas Queen. I play Garwold on TikTok. I understand that there are quite a few pranks played on the set. So I was wondering if you could tell us what was the best prank ever played on you? And if none were actually played on you, what was the best one you've ever seen carried out, and by who? Thank you very much. Thank you for answering my question, and big fan. Very big fan.
Right on.
I love your character.
Right on.
Cheers, mate.
Cool. Right on. Let's see. What a nice guy.
Yeah, he's really nice for a go old.
Oddly enough, when I did come on, I had heard the same kind of thing, and when I came on the show, it takes time to build that camaraderie back up. And to get that kind of like looseness and everything, because people don't really know like how far can they push something one way or the other. And I think if we had gotten on to a season 2 or a season 7 or 8 with me being on this, probably things would have loosened up even more. But there wasn't as much of that, unfortunately, going on outside of Chris Judge's daily flatulence.
Oh no!
There wasn't anything funny about that.
No.
I've seen some videos of it. Yep.
Oh, jeez Louise. But as far as practical jokes go, I mean, when I was working on Parker Lewis Can't Lose, we were pretty lively on that show, and we had a director. We had done an episode of the show where my mom and dad ended up getting arrested for protesting. They had gone back to kind of their old, protest days. I can't remember what they're protesting now. It's long, but so they ended up getting thrown in jail. And the next episode that we were doing, the Sunday night before our first day of shooting Monday, our director, who was a regular director, he kind of cycled through. We used a lot of the same directors. Like we had about 5 or 6 directors that we used for all of the episodes. and they would just kind of bounce back and forth. But he had gotten a DUI the night before and wasn't able to be on set first thing in the morning, so they had to bring in one of our other directors to step in and take over for about half the day until he could get to set. And so I had the construction team and disassemble one of the jail cells that we had built for the last episode and had them build it around the area that he worked from during the day as a director, what we called Video Village, which has the little playback camera, his whole little setup and the script supervisor and everything. So he and the script supervisor had to sit in jail all day. And every time he wanted to get up and go address something on set, he had to like get up, open up the jail door, step out, walk around the jail set, go over, and I thought was
that's awesome.
Now, awesome. Pranks played on me. I was doing a movie of the week called For the Very First Time. With Cheryl Pollack, Machen and Mick, a great cast on that. And we did a banquet scene, and there was they had one of those full roasted pigs with the head on it and everything, and the apple in the mouth and all that, the full deal. And I like my bacon, I'm not gonna lie, but there's just something about seeing the whole entire thing still together that's just a little, and so on that particular movie of the week, me and the crew had a lot of fun. There was a lot of joking around going on. So at this point, we had been a few weeks into the shoot, and everything was pretty loose. And I had made some stupid, just going on and on about how gross it was, and lightheartedly. It wasn't like I was being a jerk about it, but just going on how gross it was to see the head of the of it on there and everything. And so at the end of the day, when the Teamsters brought my car around, when I got into my car, they had severed the head of the pig and put it on a big tray in my passenger seat. When they brought me my car.
I would have thrown up.
I get in. I'm like, yeah, thanks. I'm like, ah!
Oh no!
I would have thrown up.
It's like a Godfather moment right there.
Yeah, exactly. It totally was like a Godfather moment. 100% it was. Yeah. It was hilarious. It was very funny though. They got me.
Oh God, that's a good one. That's actually probably one of the best I've heard. That's so good.
Yeah,
so
I mean, I could just imagine how hard they were laughing as they were severing the head of this pig in the process of making this happen.
They're like, we're gonna get him good.
I mean, that takes commitment. Oh
yeah.
Man, God, that's so good.
It's nice.
Right.
So let's see. We've got one from Tammy Allen. I actually really like this question because I hadn't thought about it. How did you film specifically in Stargate when you had some underwater scenes, like in Descent? Like you actually, there's a shot where you're like swimming through this like sunken ship. What was that like, or how was the filming for that? Tammy Allen 52 asks.
They built a cross section of the spaceship, and it was on a gigantic hydraulic lift that was set in this huge wave pool that was used for testing out miniature ships for ship construction.
Cool.
And and so the set itself was being lowered down into the water. The water wasn't actually filling up the set. The set was lowering into the water, and so the whole cross section there was never like a feeling of claustrophobia, because at any time, if you were running out of breath, you could swim, right up. It was not a problem to get up to the surface or anything. And they also had some divers in the tank as well that were keeping an eye on things from outside of the perspective of the camera. But
you were a natural in the water.
Well, I was, I grew up quite the swimmer, and oddly enough, I trained for this moment most of my life, because when I was a little kid, me and my friends always would see how many times you could swim back and forth underwater in the swimming pool, and I was a champion of this. So I ended up holding. They timed me. I ended up holding my breath for 1 minute and 48 seconds during the scene. And they had to. They wanted to do the whole entire scene in one shot because of how long I held my breath. But it was too long. They were like, we got to shorten the scene. It can't be that long. So they ended up having to edit in there and shorten it a bit. because I held my breath for too long.
That reminds me of like growing up, like sinking to the bottom of the pool and just like sitting there to like have like a tea party and hold your breath and just be like, I'm not coming up, I'm not coming up. But
Exactly.
no, I think I was like maybe 20, 30 seconds was the most I could ever do. A minute. That's insane.
But it is pretty rad to be again, like I said, the production design, just being on a set like that that's being lowered into the water and you're swimming around and then to ring out, ringing out with all that water was just one of the coolest special effects that they did. Basically, when they rang me in, excuse me, when they rang me in on the other ship when I came in. Basically, they had some guys on up above the big ladder with these big buckets of water, and the rest of the water was CGIs. But they dumped, so I had to stand there and I had to jump up in the air and just land on my chest and like just land on my stomach and everything. It wasn't the most pleasant moment of the shoot.
No.
But when I did it, so I jumped up and like planked in the air for a second, and then landed. And as I'm landing, they're dumping all the water.
They're like dumping the water.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. At the same time, like what abuse? What kind of abuse is this?
It's amazing to think about like that was one episode in 1 week and all of the production design and everything that went into it on a weekly basis. And the effects work. I do film work as one of my two professions. But like I do long term, like I've directed a feature film last December and we're still working on post. So like the idea of doing that for a weekly show is just that's why it costs so much. I know, but
I was like, that's where that $2 million budget's coming from.
Right.
Sorry, someone just rang in, so it muted you for the last couple of seconds there.
Oh no, you're good. I was just saying, just thinking about like that level, the production design and everything from week to week, and then it getting done and getting out there, but,
incredible.
But that's where the money, that's why things cost what they cost.
12 hours. Yeah, they were so tight as a crew, and they were so well oiled, and they knew exactly what they wanted, and they did the same. Most of the TV series will do that, is they pretty much use the same kind of group of directors over and over again because they have a certain amount of security in knowing that they're going to be able to pull it off. Sometimes if you bring in a brand new director who doesn't know all of the dynamics of working in that world and how much has to be done in a day, you can end up in the weeds pretty quick.
Sure.
Sure.
But we never exceeded 12 hours a day on that show.
And that's amazing. Yeah.
It's really incredible, actually. Yeah. Because on Parker Lewis, for instance, we were doing 14, 16, 18 hours a day all the time because of the complexity of the shooting of that show. And also, it was a show that they were testing out a lot of new equipment, a lot of new computerized cameras and things like that, and cameras that could swivel and turn, and dollies that can move on their own. I mean, a lot of really interesting technology that was very complicated to work with at that time because it was just coming out. So if something broke down, wasn't working right, which happened all the time, we'd be shut down until they could get it fixed. But we had to get the day in. So it was a very expensive show to shoot. That's actually really what was the nail in the coffin on Parker Lewis was how high the budget was for that show for being a half-hour show, because we were costing twice as much as the average half-hour show, but most half-hour shows were multi-camera, 4-camera shows, sitcoms, and ours wasn't. Ours was not. Ours was shot like a feature film.
Interesting.
So it was much more expensive than what the studios and networks were used to spending for half-hour of content.
That makes sense.
Which was unfortunate.
Interesting.
So, coming off of my comment about being a filmmaker, I really love all of the crazy creature movies that have come out of the Sci-Fi Channel. And I know you've been in a lot of crazy creature horror movies. How did you get going with that?
It was just from having been on Stargate. I was an approved actor for Stargate at that, for Sci-Fi Channel. it was easy for these. So I started producing on some of those as well because I could attach myself to it. We could get approval from Sci-Fi, and then we could get the financing for the budget. So that's really kind of how it started. With working with a company called The Cartel and a good buddy of mine named Stan Spry. We did Sand Sharks was the first one that we did.
Oh, Sand Sharks.
And yeah, it was very funny. It was great that it was kept a comedy. And then we did Dragon Wasps as well. That was another one that we did together, which was a nice lighthearted kind. I mean, not lighthearted, but like we kept it light and kind of there was some good comedic moments in Dragon Wasps as well. But that's really how I ended up in that kind of like little niche. There was due to Stargate, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, I love doing the action adventure stuff. Obviously some of the scripts aren't as great as scripts that I would like to work on and everything. But my job as an actor is to go in and to bring the character that I'm playing to life. I have to hope for the best for the rest of the film. But if I'm doing my job at least, then I'm happy. And the experience of being on set and engaging in what it is that I love to do for a living, that's really what's most important at the end of the day is being able to participate in the career of choice.
Yeah, sure.
I love that.
Absolutely. And what I love about those movies is like, to me, most of them, they know what they are and they don't take themselves too seriously. So they are just, a fun time to be had.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I was on a live with the other two Fries here, and I was describing my own planned creature horror movie entitled Squirrel, which would involve an army of attack squirrels leading to one giant robot squirrel boss at the end. You notice how Christina is just so I selfishly, if that ever happens, I want to know if you would be willing to star in Squirrel.
Oh my God.
No, it sounds amazing. I'm totally in.
Yes. I laugh because I can't take Squirrel seriously because I'm the ADHD of the group. So every 5 minutes it's like, what's happening? So I'm like, you're gonna make a movie about fucking squirrels. Thank you. Appreciate that. We all have our thing, right? We all have our thing.
It's Squirrel's going to happen someday. Just you don't know, you don't realize it, Christina, but it's going to happen. So
I know. Okay, so I have a sidebar question, but it kind of plays off of just we were talking about like career of choice and all that. So I also notice because I follow your Instagram and I see you do a lot of like graffiti and like artist work. So what's that about? Because so being a painter and artist myself, I'm like, oh, this is so cool. So I've been following for a little while and noticing a lot of that work. But where's that? Like, what's tapping that for you to do that as well?
I mean, I was, when I was a little kid, my parents were both artists when I was growing up. They weren't together really at all at a young age. But my mom was a graphic designer. My dad was an architect turned production designer in the film business, and my mom was a graphic designer in the music and theater business. I was very, my mom supported me drawing and all of that from a very young age. And also I got really into the breakdancing scene when I was a little kid, the hip hop and breakdancing scene. Yes. And the breakdancing scene had the graffiti art, thing associated with it. And you had your breakdancing name. Mine was Kid Cruz.
Stop.
And
nice.
Yes. Kid Cruz. Awesome. And I would draw my name Kid Cruz in different kinds of bubble letters or whatever. And I kind of like, emulating this kind of, because I was in Atlanta, Georgia at the time. So I could only kind of emulate what I was seeing from the graffiti scene in New York and whatnot. And just started getting into that and then moved from Atlanta to Los Angeles and ended up in one of my art classes in 8th grade. There was a couple of other like really, really good graffiti artists in there. And I was like, okay, now that's what I'm trying to do. And so I started painting and getting into it and drawing and painting, with those guys and just became like a passion of mine from a really young age.
I love it.
And one that I just couldn't really shake because I started doing it at such a young age, 10, 11, 12 years old, that it became, when you're involved in kind of an art scene like that for such a long time, going from that age, that is such an influential age to be in such a dynamic scene,
right?
especially. And what was else? There was an excitement to it because it's not an art form that you really do in the house. It's one that you have to go interact in the environment with.
Mm-hmm.
That was a really big part of it. Was the adventure of it. Finding out that there was a graffiti yard that I had never heard of that was way out in the middle of nowhere. And it's like, oh, you got to figure out how you're going to get there.
Mm-hmm.
The adventure of getting there. When you get there, are there going to be people already that are going to be there that don't want you there?
Right.
It was like a dangerous art form, as well as, and so that kind of adrenaline and excitement of it was really what kept me going in that scene. And I just, because some close friends of mine, were just stuck with graffiti art and the arts and on all of that, I went into more acting, arts and entertainment in that direction. But I still hung out with them, and we still painted, and I still so it just remained a part of my life all the way up until today. So
that's
awesome. It's just my medium of choice, and the scale is also a factor. There's just something that I'm so used to painting on a bigger scale. There's something when I scale things down to a piece of paper, I'm like, this is no fun,
Yeah. Well, there's something about making it larger than yourself. So, because I'm in very much way the opposite, but I have a couple friends who are large scale artists and murals or graffiti artists. But that conversation around, it's interesting you say about like the adrenaline factor, because it is such a illegal art form in some ways. And so you can get caught if you're going to spaces you're not supposed to go to, but also a territory war of like, who's supposed to be there, who's not. So I just thought that was really cool. So I just wanted to make sure I asked about that, because
for sure,
I've been following along with it, and I really like it. It was like a nice surprise. I was like, oh, and he does this too. Super cool. That's awesome.
Something else that we kind of discovered while doing our homework was your passion for hip hop.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, really, I don't listen to nearly as much as I used to, because what's coming out now just doesn't move me like the stuff that I grew up with.
Yeah.
And it was really the breakdancing thing that got me heavily into that scene. And then the so-called 5 pillars of hip hop, which are supposed to kind of try and represent all 5 of them: the fashion, the dance, the MCing, the DJing, and the graffiti art. So in being in that whole world was the attempt of trying to, bring to life as many of those pillars as possible, so I could do the graffiti art, so then I started rapping and doing the rapping thing, that actually turned into spoken word later, and I was doing the whole spoken word scene in LA cool. In the 90s, and that was a lot of fun. I did almost all of the different spoken word places that they had. I performed at almost all of them and had such a great time. So I have I have like 3 poetry books that are out on lulu.com. I self-published.
Really?
Yeah. There's 3 of them from different time periods: early stuff, mid stuff, and kind of later stuff.
Looking it up.
But and you can tell the influence of coming out of that sort of hip hop scene. So one of the books is more influenced kind of by Bukowski and the Beat Generation poets and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That was sort of my later when I was kind of when I was getting out of more writing in the hip hop form, in that kind of poetical form, and then writing in just sort of a free form without worrying about words rhyming or the pacing of it and all of that.
I love it. I just found it, so I've bookmarked it. I will check it later, because my ADHD, if I don't do it now, I will not do it. It's super cool. I'm excited about that. I love this. Super cool. Thanks. This is why I'm glad we have these moments, and like glad having you on, because we get to learn more beyond just like the character, but more about you, like who portrayed it. So this is super cool. We're so appreciative of this conversation.
Yeah, you betcha.
Now that you've said that, I'm going to pull us back around to Stargate.
Sorry, I had to do my tangent. No. I do tangents.
It's interesting to try to balance. I think all of us here are really interested in not only Stargate, but other things that are going on. But we have lots of questions from other people about Stargate. So
sorry.
No, don't apologize. I would love to talk about freeform poetry and hip hop all day. But I'm going to play another video for us.
Okay.
This is from our friend Ellie, who's been listening to us since the very beginning.
Cool.
So she's in the Czech Republic, and here we go. Let's see if this.
Czech Republic, and I would like to know, are you still surprised how many fans are still into the Stargate? Because I know it's 20 or 25 years after the last episode. Also, I am hoping to meet you in Prague Comic Con, maybe. Thank you.
That's so sweet. I'm not surprised at all that there's such a strong interest in Stargate still in over all these years. It's a timeless show, to be honest, because it takes place in present time for the most part, and you're obviously traveling to places or locations that have a superior kind of technology, so that the design of things is a little bit more modern or futuristic looking. But overall, it's grounded in present time, and I think that really gives it a great shelf life because it's easy to relate to. Star Trek, for instance, it's set so far in the future. Depending on when you watch like the old episodes and stuff, obviously they're fun to watch, great to watch, and you see that the style of design and how they were able to achieve their production design and the special effects are dated as well. I think that what's really great about Stargate, it kind of lasts the test of time is due to the fact that it takes place more in a present time environment.
Mm-hmm.
So now that you've touched upon Star Trek, there was a lot of actors crossing over from Star Trek and Battlestar Galactica.
Mm-hmm.
So how was it filming the other guys, and how hard was it to keep a straight face?
That was those guys were that was a great episode. It wasn't that difficult, It's like I've been doing this for a long enough time to be able to know when to bite my cheek or not. And also on a loose set like Stargate, working there, even if they love a moment like that where you break character and people laugh and everything. That's something that wouldn't be frustrating to the directors and the producers on Stargate. Now, if it went on for too long, they'd probably get a little frustrated by that, like anybody would. But like I said, some other sets and stuff like that, you just don't have that kind of looseness and camaraderie. There's an approach that's like just so corporate about some shows that you're working on that it kind of takes all of that out of it. It just sucks the air right out of it. And that's fine too, because I'm just there to do a job, but to be able to go there, do a job and have a great time and have a laugh while you're at it is really what it's all about. And that's what it was like working on Stargate. It was very rare, even if we were in the weeds on a day and things were getting stressful and we were over the time limit that was set for shooting that day. Even if that was the case, it didn't matter. Everybody was still just like, hey man, let's just keep it moving, keep going, keep trucking, keep having a good time, keep laughing. And really that's how the attitude always should be, because if you're blessed to be doing what it is that you love to do and to be participating in the craft of your choice and make good money while you're at it and be able to survive doing it, not like have to do it as a sidebar project.
Right.
That's the ultimate blessing in life, really. It doesn't matter what it is you're doing if you love to do it.
Exactly.
That's the ultimate blessing in life, and it's one that I really hope to be able to afford to experience for the rest of my life.
What was awesome. Dean Stockwell like?
Yeah, Dean was great. I worked with Dean Stockwell on Tucker, the first film I ever did, a Francis Ford Coppola film, playing Jeff Bridges' son, Noble Tucker. And he played Howard Hughes in that. So I had actually gotten to work with him back when I was 12 years old. And, so flash forward to working with him on Stargate so many years later was very cool. Oddly enough, you'd be surprised how rare it is to work with the same actors more than once on shows and films and stuff like that. You will see them, pair people up. You get comedy duos and things like that. or you'll have directors or production teams that kind of like Adam Sandler uses a lot of the same people in his films, and there's you kind of get these teams that work together, and that's always great. I really think that's great to do that, and to have a team that you like to work with like that. It makes it so much more fun when you get to work with people for a long time. And that's exactly what it was like on Stargate. It was just it was like a family, a real family feel to it. Every single department was 100% invested in being, in making it the best show that it could be.
Love that.
Well, you can tell by the background right there. Well, look at that Stargate. I mean, the Stargate chamber, the actual chamber that that they had set up for it. It was just one of the coolest sets ever. It was so life size. It was so realistic looking. The thing actually moved and spun, and
that's crazy.
The only thing it didn't do was send you to another planet.
That would have been
for
nice.
real, but it did work. It was a working Stargate.
So one of our TikTokers, Compact Stardust, she's an awesome one that's been around for a while, and you've already answered some of her questions, but she asked, what was it like for you on the set while recording? What was your favorite scene to record, and what was your favorite episode?
I think my favorite episode was Shadow Walkers. When I think that was the name of it.
An awesome episode.
When myself, Teal Jonas, and Carter, Captain Carter, go off base, and it's like his first time experiencing, life on planet Earth outside of the base. And I had a lot of fun doing that episode. That was my favorite episode to work on as an actor. There's obviously some great other episodes. I think one of my other what were the other
your favorite scene to record?
Yeah, the favorite scene was definitely the underwater scene that we touched on. That was like one of the coolest. That was super cool. I mean, I had such a great time during that, and it was a heated pool too, which was lovely.
Oh, so you weren't freezing.
It was like 78 degrees in the pool.
Nice.
Yeah. I had no problem being in there all day.
That's the best. I love that.
What are you working on currently? Do you have anything in the works currently that you like to talk about? Any current projects?
Yeah, I mean, I've just finished a film. Well, there's a number of films coming out. I have one called Day Labor, which I'm not sure when it will be released, but it's kind of a dramatic, dark action movie. I don't know if you call it an action movie, more of a thriller. Very touchy subject matter. I won't even touch it on this, but if you guys see that down the road, but there's one called Half Dead Fred that I just finished as well, which is a lot of fun. It's a dark comedy horror film about a medium detective who solves crimes by being able to communicate with ghosts and such.
Cool. I love that.
Yeah, great piece. A very good friend of mine, Braun Theron, he's the director writer of it, and he's actually, I know him from the graffiti scene. He's a very, very famous graffiti artist himself, and in fact, he makes a living off being a graffiti artist, which is incredible.
Nice.
Yeah, that's incredible. So cool. He's directed a lot of graffiti videos and stuff like that for different companies and for spray can companies and stuff, and done some documentary stuff. And so this is his first kind of foray into a feature film that he wrote. And I think he did a bang up job. I'm very excited about that coming out.
When is that going to come out? Do we know?
I'm not sure. The post-production process on that one is going to be a bit lengthy because it's such a tight budget. If you don't have a lot of money to throw at your post-production, you're kind of stuck. Like we did a pilot for a new TV series called Blackwater Blues with Jason London and myself. That was we did an Indiegogo for it, and then also put in our own money and raise some a little bit of money from some angel investors to be able to at least shoot the pilot episode, which we shot over a period of 3 days, a half-hour pilot for it. And I had there was an idea for the way that it was supposed to turn out in terms of the editing style that had these freeze frames that would then transition into kind of a comic book version of what it is that you were looking at, which sounded really cool. And we were all very excited about it. But when we implemented it, we spent all our post-production money, implementing this. It wasn't cheap. And when we ended up watching it, you kept feeling like every time that happened, you kept feeling like the scene was going to end, or there was some other thing. And then when you would go back into the moment, you go, oh well, okay, I'm still in the scene, and it became a complete distraction. So
interesting.
And I was really bummed because that was, we literally spent every last dime getting it done, and have to go back to the drawing board and re-edit the whole thing, but we don't have a budget left, and I don't want to go back and raise any more money from the public either. I just want to get it done and get it done the best we can. So we've just been spending, me and my producing partner Ben Easterday, and the director Steve Wise have just basically just been spending our own money getting it redone, which is painful, which is fine. But the objective is to get it sold, to get it off the ground. We did a nice teaser for it. At least we were able to boil it down and have a nice teaser. Blackwater Blues teaser. I think you just Google that and it'll come up on YouTube or whatever. I kind of get a look at what it is. But we do have some good things happening with that, which I'm very appreciative of those who have put up, who did invest in the initial Indiegogo and those who invested outside of Indiegogo. But it is coming. I mean, it will be finished one day. They will get to see what the money was spent on. But the fact that we were able to do, for less than $30,000 to be able to do a full length pilot episode is absolutely unheard of. We had an incredible team of people on the production, great group that came together. Obviously, everybody was. I didn't take any pay from it at all myself, and but obviously the people took a lot of shorts on that. We had to get some departments what they're normally used to getting paid. That's why I forewent my own paycheck. I was like, hey, if the camera department needs it, then I'll give it to them. I'm not worried about it. So it was fine. It was it's always the right move to make because I'm passionate about the project. We have the full first season already written out and everything. And so it is being shot. Nice. We have some great stuff happening with it. So we have some people looking at it right now. Even though we don't have the whole pilot for them to look at, we have the rest of the package and they are interested and we are still working.
That's exciting.
It's almost such a relief to hear about other projects that are, super low budget projects that I get asked all the time, like, how's the film going? Like, where's it going now? And when are we going to be able to see it? And it's like, well, when I get $5,000 more together to finish the sound design and the composing, but it's comforting to know that that's just common because this is definitely like this. My feature film that I did is the first one that I've directed. And, it makes you feel like I just want to get this out and I want to get it finished and get it seen. But like, it's just a process when it's just like you and like maybe a few other people working on the back end in post trying to finish it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So that makes me feel a little better.
You can share in the misery of the frustration of it, but that's very super interesting. Well, and that's so enlightening because I think for me, you are like, I would be aware of all those pain points, but not exactly be able to know why there's pain points, like what it is or where those frustrations come through. So it's really, I enjoy learning about that because that's an industry I know nothing about on the back end. So super. No, I'm excited about that.
Nice.
Right, so Rebecca's other job and my past are in EMS, and in Changeling you get to play a firefighter. How was that experience donning SCBA gear and working on the fire trucks? How did the local fire staff take you under their wing?
Oh, it was great. I mean, it was a very cool fire department we were at. One of the little bit older one had some real character to it. I can't remember which. Coquitlam. Yep. Coquitlam Fire Department up there, and they were great. Obviously, it was still an active fire department while we were there. They were like, we may have to leave in the middle of the scene. You do realize that, right? We can't just shut this down completely for you, but you guys are welcome to film here and everything.
That's awesome.
It was cool. It was a lot of fun. That's another thing that's about being in as an actor is this the ability to, not the ability, but the opportunity to be able to play all different kinds of jobs,
Mm-hmm.
To pretend that I'm being a cop, to pretend I'm an FBI agent, to pretend that I'm a ditch digger, to pretend that I'm, that I'm a, whatever. It's like, an astronaut or this or that. It's like you get to experience like every single job that there is out there to do.
Yeah.
And that to me is actually pretty cool. It's
That's awesome.
yeah. And obviously it's all pretend. It's the other odd thing about it is that you don't really ever have to grow up in a certain way, because your whole entire job is to pretend, is basically to be on the playground. That's your job.
I love that.
It's pretty far out. It is pretty far out.
I got the opportunity to do some shoots with our ambulance company because Salt Lake, where I live, was some was a destination. Like Touched by an Angel did a lot of episodes here.
Yeah, we filmed The Stand there.
Yeah. And so when we were approached by our supervisor, oh, hey, we need you to go all day and be in this movie. And Sweet. We're like, okay, no calls. I get to sit around, eat food all day. And, it was awesome to be, and every once in a while, some crew would be able to get some on camera time. But, Rebecca, I'm not sure if your department's ever done anything like that.
No, I just run calls all day long, just all day long.
But I was watching Changeling, and coming from Rebecca and I from the real EMS world, we kind of look, okay, it's dramatized here and there.
Yes,
especially when Chris is flying over some flames and smashing a windshield in.
Right.
I mean, it's like a fever dream of it anyway. So I get that part of it too. So
did they let you play with the jaws of life or play with any of the tools?
No. The jaws of life that's a scary tool. that is a powerful tool. But no, I didn't mess with anything like that.
Okay.
So I'm going to start rounding us out here with a video, and I'm going to read a couple of questions after this video that are all kind of related. A lot of people had a lot of similar questions to ask you.
Yeah.
So hang tight. I'm going to play the video, and then I'll read some questions as well.
Okay.
Share.
So my question to you would be, how did you feel about how the character arc of Jonas Quinn ended on SG-1? And would you have preferred to have more time to kind of expand that? I loved your character, and I was really sad, actually, when you left the show.
Oh, we got a lot of Jonas Quinn love we do in our little fan group. Nice. Some similar questions. Stargate 85 Girl said, what storyline do you wish Stargate had explored more with your character? And also Nate Bell 6063 asked, if you were kept on, how would you have liked to see your character develop? So all very similar questions.
Yeah, I would have loved for them to have explored a little bit more of the history of Jonas and his home planet and all of that. They did such an incredible job building these sets, for the scenes that we shot when we went back to Kelowna, and they were just gorgeous. And I was like, this is a total waste if they don't come back here again and revisit this, because these sets were gorgeous. I mean, just absolutely jaw dropping, the attention to detail and everything. And I was, I would love to have seen a little bit more of that. Maybe find out a little bit more about what was happening on with where a little bit more about where he's from, what's his history and all, that kind of thing. I think that would have been interesting. You get to learn a little bit about him from that one episode, but then it was never really revisited until he left to go back to his home planet. And again, it was one of those situations where I was actually asked if I wanted my character to die or live by the
wow
show creators, and obviously I was like, if I say die, then there's definitely no return.
Right.
But so I was like, well, obviously I would love to see Jonas Quinn survive this whole entire experience.
Right.
and I think that I would have really loved for them to have brought the character kind of back as a recurring character,
yeah,
and
Yes.
and not just completely just sort of wash the hands of it all together and never really. That was it, and I thought that was a little odd. The writers and producers and creators and all that, they're all such great guys and everything. I don't think it was anything that had anything to do with any kind of maliciousness. I just think that they needed to make sure that they stayed streamlined and focused on on the team,
Right.
and I think that was probably what was more of the factor there was just keeping it focused and not like diluting the main group of the main four.
Right.
So
well, because we got your
was,
return like that one episode, and then what was that season in season 7? You came back like once.
Yeah.
And it kind of like I remember when I was watching through the whole series, I was like, okay, we're gonna see more Jonas, and then we don't see more Jonas like at all.
Yeah.
So wrong.
Yeah, it was a bummer.
So wrong.
It's interesting because like early on in my conversations around like, so we all met on TikTok, which is embarrassing but lovely in its own right. But it was like a place that we all had gone to just like be weirdos, but we found each other because of our like of Stargate. But there's always dialogue back and forth and like, oh, what are your thoughts on this? And consistently there would be spin-off conversations around Jonas's character and everyone being like, you know what, at the time I felt this way, but now I rewatch it and I'm like, we were robbed. Like everyone constantly talks about this like, idea that especially going back through it, they're like, whoa, wait a second. Like, that's not cool. So it's so interesting how many people that's a common thread of like the top 5 questions are, what would you do with Jonas?
Yeah. Well, I was initially told that the character was brought on to go on to the spin-off Atlantis as the character.
Interesting.
Wow.
That's what the character Jonas Quinn was kind of originally was supposed to do because they weren't going to be doing any more SG1 because Richard Dean Anderson didn't want to continue on with the show much longer either. So they were really building up to do the spin-off. And then when they picked up more episodes, more seasons of Stargate SG-1, they postponed Atlantis and then decided to just create a whole new cast, and they didn't bring Jonas in at all on that. And that was really kind of the nail in the coffin for me on that one. Like, I'm dead.
Jonas Quinn can't win.
Yeah. Because I thought that would have been a really great way to transition over into Atlantis from Stargate SG-1 and to introduce that whole world thing with that character. But I understand, I understand the dynamics of why they make those decisions in the long run, and does it make sense for like the context of the show and how complicated is it to write those stories and get it.
Right.
Anything is possible, but sometimes it's just easier to do things the simple way.
Yeah.
It definitely feels like after hearing that Jonas just kind of got caught up in all this other stuff that was happening too. And unfortunately, I have one last video to play for you, and it is specifically referencing your return episode, your one return episode. So let's see here.
Oh, it's about my hair?
Maybe.
Hello, Corin. Big fan. Binge watching SG-1 for the first time currently, and just finished your season 6, which I loved. A little bit gutted they didn't keep you round when Michael Shanks returned, but that's show business. Anyway, just watched Fallout yesterday, and great episode. Well done on, I think you've done the story as well. But the big question is, what was with the hair? Did you choose?
I knew it.
Oh no!
You and I forgot the character's name now, who was playing your girlfriend, Gwowls, whatever. You had sort of like matching Bieber hair. I'm just curious where that came from. Anyway, love you.
Oh,
Curious minds want to know.
I knew it.
He lost me at matching Bieber hair. He lost me there.
That's hilarious. Yeah,
Oh.
that is hilarious. Because I wasn't really stoked on it either. But at the end of the day, I was growing it out for a different project that I was working on, and I wasn't able to just go back to a really short military do at that point, and also my hair was in such a state that just like combing it back, flicking it back, there was like nothing that could be done with it. It was just
in that middle
dire
space.
state.
Yeah.
And oddly enough, so I was when I'm in the makeup trailer, and like I'm just like, look, just part it off the side, whatever. Like, I mean, I don't know what else to do here with this. And then the actress playing opposite me, she comes in and she's got the exact same hairdo, and I was like, I'm looking at her, she's looking at me. I was like, wait a second. Okay,
Oh no.
Maybe this is just what's happening on Langara these days.
Yeah, it's the style.
Maybe this is the new style in Kelowna. We've gone back to the 60s. And plus the wardrobe too. Honestly, I mean, I'm kind of glad I did my hair like that, because the wardrobe sort of fit the hairdo.
Yeah.
I think if my hair had been too cool looking with that wardrobe on, it would have been strange as well.
I love it.
Bieber must be a Stargate fan.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Matching Bieber
so
hair.
Funny. I knew it was going to be about that.
I'm impressed. I'm very impressed.
Look, because I have the same questions. Okay, I've been questioning that hair choice for myself ever since we shot the episode. It was, I should have just gone for broke and just cut it and not worried about anybody else.
I mean, your explanation is a perfectly sound explanation. Well, we've been with you for a while now, so I feel like I just want to round us out with a couple of like Jonas love quotes from people for you, just so you understand how much everyone appreciates you from the show and everything that you gave us with Jonas Quinn. So Savvy 904 says Jonas Quinn is 100% the most underrated character on SG1, and I wish he had shown up more after season 6. Same. Tari Jedi, who actually asked, also had a question about, would you have liked to have been on Atlantis, which you answered already without even having to ask. He said, I wasn't a Jonas fan straight away, but he grew on me. Loved your portrayal of him. And our friend Ida Valor from TikTok has a whole letter to you. She says, hello, Corin. I don't have a question. I just wanted to send a message. I grew up watching Stargate and really loved watching your portrayal of Jonas Quinn. I've been writing a book since I first saw the show, and my main character was heavily inspired by Jonas. I loved the kindness and passion for knowledge you brought through with him. If it wasn't for your excellent skill, I never would have created one of my favorite characters. Thank you.
Aww.
So that's from Ida. And then one last little question. Sweet Stars 86 asks, do you smile that much in real life?
Well, apparently. The whole interview. Smiling is good for the soul.
Yes, 100%.
So sometimes I might have kind of a dark sense of humor at times, stuff like that here and there in real life. But it's mostly because I think it's better to laugh and smile about rough times or complex situations than it is to moan and cry about them at times. Maybe it's a defense mechanism, but I tend to think that having a good attitude and trying to keep things light and be a positive a positive vibe is really what it's all about. I don't try to. My acting teacher Manu Tupo for many years always said, when you step on stage, you leave your baggage at the door. So you never bring your problems, your issues, or anything like that on stage or to a set or anywhere else, to the best of one's abilities. And I try to do that in life as well. When I walk out of my house and close the door, I try to leave all my baggage inside too, and just and keep it light, keep it simple, keep it truthful, keep it real, keep it honest. And that. Spread the love.
Love that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great outlook.
So we're coming to an end here. Would anyone
I'm starving.
else would anyone else like to explain to Corin how we end the show here?
Christina.
Oh, yes. Okay. So we have a tradition. So whenever we close out an episode, we close the iris. So everyone, we all take our turns, but whenever we have a guest on, it's your turn you just have to close the iris. And it's just get into character. And then you just have to like pretend like you're telling someone to close the iris.
Whatever character you want. I mean, it can be Jonas, but it can be whatever.
We did it as Hammond one time, I think, like a Southern accent.
We did it.
But that's us closing the shows. We close the iris. So we would love it if you would close the iris for us.
All I have to do is just say close the iris.
Yeah,
that's all you got to do.
That's all you got to do.
In your best character voice.
But before you do that, Corin, Nemec, thank you so much for being on Three Fries Short with us. Thank you for taking your time to talk to us. We really, really appreciate it. And it's been a blast. So thank you so much.
We appreciate you.
Here we go. Indeed. Close the iris.
Perfect.
I love it.
Amazing. Awesome. Oh, Corin, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Y'all.
We appreciate you.
We'll do a catch up later on.
Yeah, definitely.
Do a catch up. Y'all are a blast.
Go have some food.
Just go eat. We're so sorry. Go eat. We'll have you on again.
You betcha. Love y'all.
Thank you.
All right, we love y'all too.
Bye.
Bye. Peace.